Recording in progress.
All right, good morning, guys. Hi, Kimmy. Are you ready? I'm gonna have Donna comes up and then do the intro for us.
Great, thank you.
Welcome to today's webinar hosted by eLotus, the leading provider of acupuncture continuing education. I'm Donna Chow, your host and your moderator for today's class. Today's webinar is TCM Patient Documentation and Ethical Practices, sponsored by Evergreen Herbs, and will be presented by Kimberly McMinn. The class will take place from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time. We will have 4 scheduled breaks, and lunch will be from about 12 to 1 p.m. Before we begin, let's ensure that we are all prepared for an engaging and informative session. In the chat room, please set your chat preference to everyone so that all attendees can see your messages and participate in the conversation. If you have any questions for the instructor, please type them into the Q&A box. Finally, after the webinar is over, a quiz will be available for you the next working day. So look out for an email notification once it is ready. Our speaker today is Kimberly McMinn. Kimmy has been practicing TCM since 2011 and holds an NCCAOM board certification as well as a license to practice TCM in Texas. Prior to her career in Chinese medicine, Kimmy worked as a public health expert and humanitarian aid worker for various international and local agencies. She holds a Master of Public Health and Infectious Disease from Tulane University and a BS in Biomedical Science from Texas A&M University. With extensive experience in providing public health trainings across different countries, Kimmy's commitment to delivering exceptional medical care is evident. Her passion for Chinese medicine and promoting healthy living shines through her work in the Austin area. Kimmy has previously taught courses on various topics with us as well, and you can find the links to her class on her speaker page. But for now, let's dive into today's session and embrace the opportunity to learn something new. We are excited to see what Kimmy has in store for us. And so Kimmy, please feel free to share your PowerPoint presentation now. And let's get started.
Hey, everybody. Good morning. I just wanted to welcome everybody. Some of you guys might have been in the class yesterday, and some of you are new to the class today. So before we get started, this is a documentation class, and we'll talk about, I tried to bring up different ethical standards and practices and things like that. I know it's a bit of dry information, but I'm going to try to make it fun. I put in some cartoons and a couple videos for us to watch by experts and things of that nature. So I think that we'll try to have a good time and learn a little bit at the same time. If you guys have any questions, like Donna said, just put them in the chat. I'll ask you guys to put some information in the chat as well. And I would much rather answer questions and have a discussion. So if we can do that, that'd be fun too. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, can everyone see that? Sam, we're up and running?
Yep, we look
okay.
Good.
Perfect. So as Donna said, my name is Kimmy McMinn. I live here in the Austin area. And when eLotus asked me to teach this class, I was excited to, because I also do some consulting for the Texas Medical Board as a panelist. And so I am able to, and we'll talk about this more when we get to the documentation part, I'm able to know some of the mistakes that people make in their in their documentation. And if something gets brought up to a case to the board, then so I have some insight into that. So we'll share some of that later. And this is just a disclaimer. This is for educational purposes only. I am not a lawyer, you guys. And so I know a lot of ethics classes and things about that are taught by lawyers. I'm not. So nothing in this presentation constitutes legal advice. So please contact your lawyer or counsel. I think that it'd be great if we can have some discussion about things. But again, for any legal advice, please go to your legal counsel. So housekeeping, obviously, we've all been trained in different styles. So I really want you guys to share your experiences as well. I'm by no means an expert at any of this. I just am kind of nerdy and enjoy making sure that documentation is correct. I think I have a next slide in here about some of my qualifications as well. But this is coming from a general public health perspective about HIPAA, about privacy, about different ethical codes. I put some information about an international ethical code in here that we can talk about just because I thought it was interesting. And I know we have people that may not be from the US. Obviously, this presentation, since it's done for eLotus and most people are applying for CEUs in a state here in the US, it does contain a lot of that information. But if we have some of our colleagues from international, we would love to hear what you guys do as well. I'll talk a little bit as working a consultant for the state board. These are hypothetical cases only. I'm not giving you information crossing over any lines or anything specific, just talking generalities of trends where I see that people may have some missteps in their documentation. And this, I am in the state of Texas, so it's with the Texas Medical Board here. And then take breaks as you need, go to the bathroom. We're going to take breaks and give you guys a little bit of time. Some of this information, especially when we get back from lunch, it's a little, little dry. So we're going to try to just shake it up a little bit. But if you guys need a break and think that we're at a point where it's good, just drop it in the chat. A little bit about me. As Donna said, she told you I had a master's in public health and infectious disease and complex emergencies. When the pandemic started, I went back to working in public health due to my credentials, and there was a lack of public health workers. So now I currently am working full-time in public health and emergency management, preparedness mostly, but some response. For TCM, I'm still supervising at the local TCM school here, and I really love it. I love working with the students. I've worked in all types of acupuncture clinics, community acupuncture clinics. I've worked and done free clinics for AIDS service organizations with HIV and Hep C patients. I've worked in one place that was really fun. That was a beautiful, fancy like yoga spa. That was lovely. And some more that have been really medically focused fertility clinics and things of that nature. So, I come from all different areas, but I do really love our field of work. So in this process, we are we're going to go through a couple of goals that eLotus put out, to gain CEUs. So a lot of it is just how to document properly and commit to the ethical and legal reporting practices. And then to start us off, I just thought this was a cute little funny rock, paper, scissors, and nobody wants to put the sunscreen on the porcupine. So maybe people feel like that about us once in a while. So let's get started here. A code of ethics in your practice is, let me move this little screen here, is a great way to remind patients and colleagues of your standards of care and how you respect patients' rights. I think everyone in this presentation can agree on that today. It's one thing I really want to say about this is that it's important to hold regular meetings with your staff to discuss the importance of confidentiality or the importance of staying up to date with your laws and rules and regulations. obviously we have, we all have different state laws, and there's different things associated with that according to documentation or licensing or board exams and all of that. So, it'd be impossible for me to cover all of that specific to each state. So this is a very general overview of it, but it covers our ethics requirement for our CEUs and things. So when our staff continues to be mindful to practice and safeguard information, that's when we're going to be protected ourselves, correct? And also our patients. We want our patients to be protected. We don't want them to think that we are, not following the rules and the regulations and the laws. So the code of ethics, it's really important and a great way to remind patients and colleagues about your standards of care, about your respect of patient rights, about your professionalism, and that you take these types of issues seriously. So there's some benefits to having a code of ethics written for your patients in plain view. So one is it provides a sense of trust. Sometimes people don't look at what we have hanging on our wall out in the room, but oftentimes over the years, I've had patients comment on several different things, what we had to have with our legal documents from our state, or a code of ethics, or to have our license or our, documentation from school, our diploma, or our NCCAOM certification. So it just gives people a sense of trust. And some people may be coming to us for the first time and they don't realize how much schooling we have. They don't realize that there are a lot of regulations around traditional Chinese medicine and healing, in our healing modalities. So I think it can just help build that trust with the patient. It plays into informed consent. So we're going to talk, a little bit about that today. I don't think anybody out there is practicing, hopefully, without an informed consent form. Again, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to go into all of the forms and how to set them up, because that's not my expertise. And I think you want someone who has that legal background to help you if you're setting up a new clinic. But I'm pretty sure most people out there probably have their clinic forms set up. And if you don't, you can Google, and you guys can always send me a message and I can help you find someone to do that as well. So it is required by NCCAOM. So as everything in our field of practice right now, a lot of things are controversial, and a lot of people are are having discussions and possibly not agreeing on certain things. So I know NCCAOM is one of them. A lot of people don't think that they provide what we need as acupuncturists. And this class isn't to discuss that, but it is something that is required for a lot of people when they get their boards, that you have to sign the code of ethics. So it is something that we have to put into the CEU and go through for NCCAOM for accreditation. The staff knows the standards to which they're held. That is really important. That's why I mentioned that right off the bat, about our staff knows what they need to do, and how important that you as the clinic owner or the leader or their professional colleague, they know that you take this seriously, and that you're not going to ignore if there's a breach of privacy and such. So here's the super exciting code of ethics from NCCAOM. So we're going to go through each one of these. This one that I pulled from was the most current one that I could find from 2022. And so that's the one that we're going to go through today. So really the cornerstone of NCCAOM, that's a hard word to say, right? The cornerstone is their commitment to ethical practices and professional conduct is their code of ethics. So when they have us sign this, it's our pledge that we're going to try to abide by those and that we're going to fulfill those ethical standards. Ethics is really hard, you guys. We had a conversation yesterday and CEU class yesterday here on eLotus, and it's hard. There's a lot of things that we come from different backgrounds. We've come from different cultures, and we come from different ways to, yeah, Tina's saying she was there, and we come from different ways. So I really know when we talk about ethics, there's a lot of different points of view. I'm going to present today on the ones that are required for the CEUs, but I really do advise that we have a discussion if there's something, and maybe our colleagues, a lot of you guys are probably more skilled in this than I am. So, you know, apply with eLotus to teach a class on it if you have some ideas as well. So this is the code of ethics laid out by NCCAOM, and it just talks about what we just stated, that we're going to pledge to our commitment to following the principles. As we go through it, we want to, the first one is respect the rights and privacy of my patients by maintaining confidentiality and professional boundaries at all times. So I think that we could have very different definitions of professional boundaries, right? I think that some of us have a different way of treating patients that people might not agree with. Some of us are very strict. Some of us are friends. Sometimes people are friends with patients and things like that. So that again is set out by different states in different ways. So there's a lot of information out there for you to find, and I really encourage you to kind of go through that. Confidentiality, that part, and the privacy, that's universal, I believe. I don't think that there's a whole, hopefully there's not a whole lot of discussion and difference in that terminology. I mean, we really do need to maintain the privacy of our patients in this day and age with all of the information on the internet, and all of us, I'm sure, have been involved in some kind of personal breach where maybe your credit card number was leaked or something like that. It's terrifying. So we really don't want patients to have that fear when they come to us that we're not going to treat their information professionally. Another one is respect my colleagues, employees, students, and mentees by maintaining appropriate boundaries. Again, there are boundaries. I have a slide with boundaries in there. I'm pretty sure all of you out there have learned about boundaries in your school, and you had a lawyer teach your class about what you can and cannot do in that state. And that's all very, very important. Sometimes people do cross boundaries, and sometimes life gets in the way, or things happen, or things of that nature. So you really want to think about, if there has been an inappropriate situation, you want to contact a lawyer, you want to contact your malpractice insurance or your mentor or your school, whoever it is that you would go to for that type of advice, because you don't want to try to navigate something like that on your own. I see a lot of, in the different acupuncture groups on social media, people will post information to get advice, and it's always best to get legal advice, because there's so many things in this day and age that could be happening. So the next one is treat within my lawful scope of my practice and training, and only if I'm able to do so safely, competently, and effectively. So again, it's hard to teach a class like this from the general overview, because what may be lawful in the scope of practice in Texas may not be in California or may not be in New York or Kansas or Wisconsin. So there's a lot of different laws, and especially if you're a new practitioner, you're a student, you really want to learn those. You really want to learn what's in your scope of practice, because if there is a complaint to you that could be founded or not founded, but if there is a complaint to a medical board, they will go through your record. And if you're practicing something out of your scope of practice, you can definitely be fined or worse on that. So you don't want to do that. I know that some states have very restrictive laws, and some people can do a lot of really exciting and interesting things from a TCM perspective, but just make sure you know that law. And then obviously treating safely and competently, effectively to do so. I will tell you, in 2015, I talked a little bit about this yesterday. My father passed away, and I was working in a clinic, and of course it was unexpected, and it was very difficult for me. And I took off some time to stay with my dad in the hospital before he died. But after he passed, I knew, like, I needed to take some time off. I needed to take care of myself, number one, and grieve. I had a lot to do. That was my second parent that passed. So I had a lot of responsibilities, and I would not have been able to focus on my patients in that situation. So I knew at that time I was working in a clinic for another practitioner. And of course, that person was supportive, and it turned out fine, but it was something that I needed. I knew I needed to step back, because I wouldn't have been able to focus on somebody's situation when I was distraught myself. Has anybody ever dealt with the situation where they felt like they needed to step back? They had something going on in their lives. So if you don't have to share it in the chat, but just think about that. How can we competently treat our patients? Assist those seeking services in a non-discriminatory and unbiased manner. So yesterday, some of you were in the class. We talked about cultural competency. It's a huge topic and something that is very nuanced. So is discrimination, but we cannot practice in that way. We have to follow non-discriminatory laws. We need to be open to people that come to us. I believe that most acupuncturists in our field are. I think that a lot of us got into this position and into this field because we really feel drawn to it. We really feel, for lack of sounding cheesy, we want to pass on that love, right? We want to pass on that healing. And so I think that that's super important that people are able to think about that. Someone shared in the chat, when their mom died, they ended up retiring because it was obvious that they needed more time for themselves. Yes, thank you for sharing that. I think that we all have to do what's best, right, for ourselves. And then someone else shared that their father also passed away in 2015. And yeah, you were working for yourself and not able to take some time off. And I remember treating a new patient in the afternoon after my father died. Wow, that's a lot. And I remember telling her what happened, but I didn't want to cancel her appointment. And I never heard from her again. I think that is that happens to all of us, right? We're humans. We're humans. We have a lot of emotional bandwidth to be in the practice that we're in. So we feel things deeply often. So yes, I think that sometimes that happens, and I'm sorry that a lot of times we have to be driven by that financial string that's around us, that we have to be able to do that. And I know it's very hard. And I think that you guys have a lot of, financial and low debt. I think it's hard and you have a lot of strength. But sometimes we do have to do that. I've had other times where I've had something traumatic happened and then had to treat patients, and you try to put it out of your mind, but you can't always, right? So yesterday we talked a little bit about do your best, whatever that best is that day, just do your best, right? It's kind of the golden rule. And most often I do think patients understand. So the next one from NCCAOM is allow my patients to fully participate in decisions related to their healthcare by documenting and keeping them informed of my treatment and outcomes. So when I'm supervising at the student clinic, I, really am partially strict on their documentation, especially from the scope of practice for the state of Texas, and just hoping that they're learning from the beginning how to keep good records and how to document what's happening. And if we're chatting with the patient on the phone, or we get some kind of record from a patient in email, they're asking us questions, or maybe they have a complaint or something, making sure that we're documenting that as well. Keeping patients informed of our treatments and outcomes. I think having a treatment protocol, having a procedure that you share with the patient, that you talk to them, you're going to come in, 4 to 6 weeks, we're going to gauge where you are, then we move to maintenance, or we don't, or these are things that are happening. What are these outcomes? What are our goals? What does our patient want? What are we looking to do? Have you guys ever had a patient where you were treating them and they were not responding? Like what's our role in that as well? Being honest, to me, I believe being honest with the patient and talking to them about that. So I do think that that's a really important part of doing it as well. Let's check the chat here. Oh, no problem. No problem at all. Welcome, everybody. If you're just joining in, we're just going through some NCCAOM ethics and different practices. So render the highest quality of care and make timely referrals to other healthcare professionals as may be appropriate. So again, that is our goal, right? We want to render the highest quality of care. We want to make timely referrals. We want to be, not all of us, but a lot of people want to work within that healthcare system that we have. It is definitely not perfect. I know that. I know that there are so many reasons that people will come to us because they're not getting what they need in a separate healthcare system. But there are times that we do have to refer to other healthcare professionals, especially according to your state law and according to your malpractice insurance. Make sure you know when those times are, and make sure that you're following them and that you're documenting them. Obviously, patients have free will. They can do as they wish, but you need to make sure that you're doing your due diligence to make sure that you're doing the best for them and protecting yourself at the same time. And here someone's putting in the chat, yeah, telling them this modality doesn't seem to be working for you, refer to a chiro or a massage therapist, or any of those different options, I do think is really important if our patients are not experiencing what they need. In some states there may be, again, it's kind of vague. I apologize for that. Look up your own state laws, but in some states, like if a patient isn't better within 20 treatments, then you have to refer them out or refer them back to another practitioner, or follow through with that. Now, most of the time, even if our patient comes in and they say, oh, I feel the same, my shoulder, it feels the same, there's no change, then we ask them all of our great TCM and questions, and we say, well, what about digestion? What about your bowel movements? What about, your mental health? What about your anxiety or your migraines? Oh yeah, those are all better. those, I forgot about that. I don't have insomnia anymore. So I do think that is something that we should really follow through and document that. Maybe their shoulder isn't better in the first 5 or 10 treatments, but these other things are. So make sure you're following up. I imagine all of you out there in the internet land are doing that. But, it's good to have a refresher and remind ourselves, because it's easy when you've seen a patient over and over. Say you've been seeing a patient for a few years, it's easy just to kind of say, oh, the patient's doing great, or oh, the patient's doing fine, or, you know, this is better, but this is not. You want to be a little bit more descriptive if possible. So let's move on to the next one. Continue to advance my knowledge through education, training, and collaboration. That's exactly what we're doing right now, right? Depending upon your state. And then obviously we have the NCCAOM CEU requirements every 4 years. Whatever it is, follow through on that. I like that ours can often be more creative. I do find this topic to be a little bit dry, so I hope you guys aren't falling asleep out there, but that's why I try to put in some personal stuff. I hope that you guys don't mind if I put in some personal stories and things, but I think through our education and training, we can always learn something, and our colleagues are so important to learning and advancing our knowledge, especially when you're a new practitioner. If you have a mentor, or you have a clinic partner that you got really close with and you guys really trust each other, it's great not to break HIPAA, but to talk theoretically about treatments and documentation. So participate in activities that contribute to the betterment and wellness of my community. So this means something different to everybody. I absolutely believe that we all have a different definition of wellness, a different definition of community. And we talked a bit about that in the cultural competency one, like what are those kind of definitions? To me, this means partaking, and not for everybody, but for me, it means partaking in those community style clinics. Or I like to go and do something like Acupunctures Without Borders, those types of things. To me, that's giving back to my community. You probably have lots of different ways that you give back to your community. So if you guys do want to drop any of those in the chat, I think people would love to hear that. Some people do presentations or attend health fairs. Some people do things with retirement communities or nursing home type facilities. So many things that we can do to contribute to our community. Lots of you guys have blogs, and I like to read that, read your social media, read what your information that you're putting out there. So many different creative ways. So if you guys want to share those, I think that would be great. People can learn from that with each other. We're almost through with these, and we'll go through a few more lists as well today, so just bear with me. Support in the care and access of my medicine to underserved populations. So we just talked about that, right? We talked about how we can work with whatever this word means to you. Some people do a pro bono type situation, or a sliding scale for patients. Maybe we have a patient that has a terminal disease, right? That we want to be able to help them in a hospice situation. Maybe we have a patient that's going through really rough cancer treatment or another type of treatment, and they are unable to experience that. So we all have different ways of doing that. Someone put in here, the more personal, the better for new practitioners. Yeah, I think so. And then I like my yoga community because of the energetic exchange. I think that's really awesome. I recently I did a yoga certification years ago as a teacher, and I recently went to a retreat last year, and I was really good friends with the woman who was running the retreat, and she was doing some sound healing. And I had everybody sign consent form, of course, but I actually did the Nada protocol while people were resting in Shavasana. And it was beautiful, and I got a lot of great feedback from it, and it was super fun for me. It was my way to share with the other ladies at the retreat. So there's all sorts of things that we can do that help us contribute to our community, and build our knowledge, also increase the understanding of acupuncture, right? Increase our outreach. This wasn't in my town or even in my state, but it was a situation where people could learn more about acupuncture too. And it was in a very safe situation as well. So promote my profession's access to all people and its growth in the broad spectrum of healthcare. That's a word salad, I think. But it's really talking about how do we make our profession, TCM, acupuncture, herbs, whatever you call yourself. I know there's a lot of different terminology and different terminology allowed by state regulations. Whatever you're calling yourself in our profession, how are we going to grow it? And I often see a lot of discord within the acupuncture community about that because, and this may go back to NCCAOM too, is that maybe some of the other lobbies in the healing modalities, chiropractic, we're all talking about dry needling, all of that, some of them have very strong lobbies. So I think that it's something, how can we help grow our profession? Someone put in the chat, I tried to participate on a Facebook group and have since left because people attacked me personally for asking a question. Yeah, I think that can be a little bit stressful. And, it really stressful if people are attacking you or trolling you. I don't like that either. I find it interesting sometimes when people come into a CEU and troll people or try to stir up discord too. I want open discussion. I definitely want that when I'm a participant and when I'm a presenter. But I also think that we have to do it in a professional way. So if you're in one of these, professional groups and it gets unprofessional like that, that's it's shocking. And yeah, it's really sad. I'm sorry that that happened. So let's break this up a little bit with a little cartoon here. So does this look like an ethical practice to you guys? The acupuncturists are keeping score over here on the wall and the patients hopefully asleep and not realizing what's happening. Just a little funny, of course. I'm not making light of it, but I thought, oh, that looks a little bit not ethical. Another person put in the chat that I think the main problem is the mindset of competition and scarcity. And I talked a little bit about that yesterday too, that really, yes, and I know there's a lot of opinions about NCCAOM. I don't work for them. I'm not associated with them. It's just part of the CEUs that needs to be included. But I do think that that scarcity mindset, we talked a little bit about that yesterday too, in that if we know that we are not able to provide what someone needs, we should want them to get it, right? So if I've had patients that I knew just could not afford the clinic price of a private treatment, of course I wanted them to continue to get treatment. And if they could afford the community acupuncture clinic, then I was happy for them to get that. Norberto is saying, I refer patients to MDs and acupuncturists. I never get referrals from only from acupuncturists. Oh, only from the MDs. So yes, I think that is an issue. Are we not referring to each other? Are we not looking at other people's specialties? If someone has a specialty in fertility and you don't, or you don't even feel drawn to treat fertility, refer them. It's a very specific fertility type treatment that they're looking for, possibly. If they, if I'm not good in orthopedics or I'm not great with shoulders, but I know that my friend Reagan is great with shoulders, I'm going to refer over there because that is something that I want that patient to feel better. I think if we came at it from that perspective, I really do think it would spread growth. It would spread that camaraderie. But I think the more patients find out about acupuncture, the more patients that there are going to be coming to all of us. So here's one, even as early as being an intern in school, I referred them to Japanese style interns if they were super sensitive. During my practice, I was also referred to other acupuncturists and Reiki, et cetera, and I had no issues letting a patient go or firing someone. I need the energy in my room to be clean and clear. Yes, yes. I think we all have different personalities. We can see that every day in our life, but in our interactions with our patients and with our colleagues. And I once had a patient that came in, and this person was much more quiet and reserved than I am. I can be a little bit loud and gregarious, which a lot of people thought I should not be an acupuncturist. I disagree with that. I attract a lot of people that like that style, I feel. But this particular person, I felt I was trying to be, more subdued and mold myself to the patient. But I just knew that this person was going to do better with my colleague that I was working with. I thought their energies would mesh. And after the treatment, I said to the person, hey, I think that, you might be really comfortable with my colleague that works here. And this person is really good at X, Y, and Z. So maybe make an appointment with them if you feel that's a good fit. If not, I'll see you next week. So something that we can just take that patient's best interest. So I also wanted to show, some different things that I found in some research. And I honestly did not know about this professional model from AOM. I'm going to post the article in the chat. And it was formed, I guess, in 2001. There was a joint ethics committee composed of members of American Association of Oriental Medicine, AAOM, it says, and the Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine Alliance. I know those words have changed and different. This is just what they published. I'm just reading what they published, and they began to work on a model code. Since then, the organizations have held joint hearings at their annual conferences, along with interim communications between members and ethics committees. And they resulted in an attached ethics document. It's been rewritten and edited over a period of 3 years, it says, and there was a total of 8 revisions. So I'm going to drop that in the chat. And then you guys can go back and read that. It basically covers 3 commitments they stated. So one is a commitment to the patient, right? We all have a commitment to the patient. You're not here if you don't have a commitment to the patient, hopefully. And then the second is a commitment to the public, right? We're going to commit to keep the public safe. We're going to commit to do our ethical practice to the public. And then the third commitment was to the profession. So let me see if I can. Well, I'll post it in the chat when we take a break, because I don't want to mess up I'm not the most tech savvy person, so I don't want to mess up the PowerPoint presentation. But it was a published article on Acupuncture Today, and it's just called AOM Profession Publishes Model Code of Ethics. And I just thought it was interesting when I was putting together this presentation. I had read it, and I don't recall seeing that in the past. So I thought, it's a different way to look at things. Rangwoo is mentioning, I concentrate my practice in pain management. I always send patients to other acupuncturists if patients are not pain related. Yes, that's great. And hopefully that they are doing the same, right, Rangwoo? Hopefully they're sending people to you that have pain, and then they're taking people maybe that are coming in for other issues. What time are we going here? Okay, we've got a little bit more to power through for before we take a break. Are you guys doing okay out there? Okay, yes, people are saying yep. Thank you very much. I wish that we could be in person and that we could interact and have a discussion and share. I know this is the new normal, but it takes a little bit of time to get used to having to be the only one talking. So if you guys share in the chat, I love it. So I also found another model that I thought was really interesting. I know that this doesn't apply because it's not something we sign. It's not something that we're involved in specifically, but it has a lot of great information. And I put the link here, but I'm going to post it also in the chat as well. At the break, I'll post a couple things. And this is the International Code of Ethics. And when I was looking at it, it was talking about the World Medical Association had developed an international code of medical ethics. And I was like, oh, let me look at this. And it's a canon of ethical principles for the members and the medical profession worldwide. And I have worked mostly in public health, but a little bit in acupuncture overseas. And I have always been in awe. I've worked in different situations, post-disaster, sadly post-war, post-earthquake situations. And I am always just so in awe of how dedicated the doctors and nurses, medical professionals, and other acupuncturists and people that I've met out in the field, herbalists, and all of those different modalities out there, just so impressive. So I like to cover a little bit and look into the international side. So hopefully this isn't too boring for you guys. So they came up with this in concordance with different declarations. So the World Medical Association Declaration of Geneva, and a physician's pledge that's international, and the Declaration of Helsinki. So there's a lot of different organizations that were involved, but it really just kind of shows the professional duties of physicians, doctors, any healthcare professional towards their patients and towards other physicians, towards themselves. And one point that they put was society as a whole. So I thought that was really cool. The physician needs to be aware of like what the national ethical, legal, regulatory norms and standards are. Oh, thanks you guys that I'm making a dry topic interesting. I'm trying really hard to do that. So I know that this is a dry topic. It's part of something we have to do every year. So yeah, thank you for abiding me, going along on this journey with me to some more interesting types of ethics. For this, I think the most important thing is that, you know, we all worldwide, we want to do the right thing, right? I believe that most people do want to do the right thing. So these are just general considerations. Some of them are worded really cute and interesting. So I'm going to go through a couple of them. There was like 40. So I'm not going through all 40, but I'm going to read through a little bit of them. You can read it on the screen, but it says that the International Code of Ethics should be read as a whole document. And that, so you can look it up once I post the link, or you can Google it. Each of its paragraphs should be applied with relative consideration for other paragraphs, which I thought was great. Like their part about the contribution to society really resonates with me personally. And so we're going to go through this, and it really is talking a little bit about that physicians are really right now facing unprecedented challenges that are exacerbated by political climate, by legal climates, by market forces, as we were talking about, you know, scarcity, changing clinical standards, all sorts of different things like that, that the medical profession is becoming more dynamic, right? It's becoming more interconnected. I mean, we don't want to get into COVID. I know that that is also a controversial subject that people in the acupuncture community often get divided on, but I went back to public health because I have a degree in infectious disease, and I felt that I had something to offer. I worked for the Austin Public Health here in town, and I worked on different aspects of COVID. But one thing I think that we really saw with this global scale was COVID, right? A novel virus. And so we could see what people were doing in other countries. And, you know, Dr. Chen here at Evergreen, who's brilliant, you know, did those webinars for us in the beginning with the herbs and the practices. And what a great thing that we had to be able to share that information. And so we are going to just think about that on that global scale, right? And Jocelyn's asking, have I looked at CEUs? Yes, I do. And it is in our presentation for later today. Of course, I would put that information in there in a couple different ways. I also have a video later where Bob Floss is talking a little bit about it, because Bob is so calm and just zen in that respect. So we're definitely going to break it down by the TCM aspect. But of course, we have to get through a couple hours of presentation, and we have to stick to those standards to kind of get through and get our CEUs. So yes, we're going to have some very interesting information later coming about that. So that's how I hook you guys, right? I give you the boring stuff in the beginning. Well, not boring, the more dry stuff in the beginning, and then we'll get down to our gritty about how we treat. So here, you guys have probably read this, but care with the utmost respect for human life and dignity, and for autonomy and rights of the patient. That is everywhere, hopefully, right? That's just amazing that we can do that. I love that you guys are nerds out there as well. So another one is you can read through these, is just the physician needs to be fair and just, right? We really want to leave our bias. That's super hard. It's really, really hard. We have to work and we have to try. And we had a whole conversation yesterday regarding this topic about cultural competency. And I think what's a takeaway from this is that this is continuous learning, right? This is what we have to do for the rest of our lives if we want to be able to practice from this unbiased area. We're going to make mistakes, right? We're going to do things that offend or upset somebody, or maybe we really just didn't know. But it's up to us as the practitioner to learn, to read, to experience, to listen, to learn and admire from our other colleagues as well. One thing that came up yesterday, I talked a little bit about, was that it's not easy, number one, and it's not the same to everybody. But for me, as a white woman, as a person that is trying to learn and has lived and worked all over the world, I want to engage with my colleagues that are of different ethnic origins, or different races, different ages, different genders, different nationalities. I want to engage with that. So it's really important to me, but I still make mistakes, and I try really hard to learn, and I try to read. And so I think that's all we can ask, it if we could try to understand each other and things a little bit more. If you didn't watch the video yesterday, I also had a guest speaker. Their name is Jonah, and they did a presentation with a few slides for probably about 45 minutes or an hour in that presentation regarding transgender healthcare. And, right now there's a lot of things that are happening in different states and also different countries, where if there is something that's going on and you want to work with a patient in that group, then I think try to learn as much as you can, and let's make our patients comfortable, right? So the physician must strive to use healthcare resources in a way that optimally benefits the patient. We want to be prudent and with the stewardship of shared resources. This is definitely one I've seen overseas. When I was in Liberia in 2010, and I was volunteering there with the Ministry of Health and I was already had done some acupuncture, and I was there in a public health standpoint, but I got to see a lot of really interesting things that you don't often get to see in the States. But one of the things that really stands out to you in a situation like that, they have been in war for many years. They're wonderful, beautiful, amazing people. They have such a sense of humor for what they've gone through. I have the utmost respect. And the shared resources, the lack of resources in which the doctors had to operate. I lived right by the government hospital, and I lived in the same little area with the only doctor in the entire county there. And I learned so much from him about, how they functioned with those little resources. And it was just heartbreaking and, inspiring all the same. Moving on, the physician must practice with a conscience, with integrity, honesty, accountability. I think you guys are all really out there trying to do that. I think that we often are shocked when we see a story about an acupuncturist or an herbalist that is doing something that wasn't honest or with integrity. That's sad, but it happens everywhere. Of course, it happens with all sorts of people and professions. Physicians must not allow their individual professional judgment to be influenced by the possibility to benefit of themselves. Oh, goodness. That one is really true. It's often, I think, a conundrum when people are, maybe they're into some kind of MLM, and for people who don't know what that is, you're trying to sell things through different organizations and things like that. If we're really excited about something, we want to share it with other people, right? But is that our role as the doctor to say, well, I want you to take this, or I want you to do this, when it's something that you're kind of double dipping on? Obviously that, again, speak to a lawyer about that. But I think this is an interesting topic about, are we influenced by the benefit to ourselves? We are influenced by the benefit of maybe the serotonin boost we get from helping patients. That's a good benefit, right? That's a great thing that we're doing in the world, but we really don't want to have a conflict of interest. Sometimes they happen, and I do think it's really important for people to get legal advice. And then if a conflict is unavoidable, they must be declared in advance. So I mentioned at the beginning that I do some consulting for the medical board. And, obviously, if there is a case that's presented, I could never take one if it was someone I knew or tangentially knew, or was even, I would not want to even be associated with a clinic that I used to work at or something like that. So, we want to look for those conflicts of interest. Physicians must take responsibility for individual medical decisions, and not alter their sound medical advice on the basis of instructions contrary to medical considerations. You can read this one in all sorts of different ways. So just take away from it what you feel is important. I think that there's a lot of still discord. And so there are things that are so contrary out there, and social media. I have a video for you guys later about thinking before we post on social media as ourselves. It's kind of an interesting video where it shows like maybe people that are applying to medical school or something like that, and that those schools can go back and look. Your patients can also go back and look at what you're doing on social media. So obviously you can put your things on lockdown where they can't find you, hopefully. But think about that. It's real easy to post something that might be upsetting to somebody. So we want to think about that if we have a public account. When medically appropriate, the physician needs to collaborate with other physicians and health professionals. We talked about that. It depends on our state codes and our state laws. Sometimes we do need to refer out. Our malpractice insurance here in the US, that does tell us certain things that we can and cannot treat. If you choose to treat outside that scope and something happens, they're not going to cover you. So you need to be aware of all that information. When providing professional certification, you want to certify what has been verified. That probably isn't as applicable to us. We should help in medical emergencies. Again, that's not applicable to us unless it is, right? If they are asking on a plane, is there a doctor on board? In most cases, they're asking for an allopathic, a Western medicine doctor. But, depending upon what's going on, we could help people if we have CPR training and we have first aid training, and we want to, right? The physician must never participate or facilitate in acts of torture, cruel, inhumane, degrading practices. Please, yes, let's never do that. We're almost done with these, and then we'll talk just a few more minutes, and then we'll take a break. The physician must engage in continuous learning throughout professional life. We're doing that, right? We're developing our professional knowledge and skills. Maybe not in this presentation, but we're doing a lot of different presentations. Yes, it is sad that a lot of these are have to be stated, but we have so many different presentations out there that if you're interested in a certain thing, you can find it. Like, I love infectious disease. I hate that people suffer with it. But it's my passion, it's my wheelhouse. And I've done trainings for eLotus in the past, and it's really exciting to me to put the information together. That's not everybody's wheelhouse. That's not everybody's excitement or passion. But for me, I like to seek out things that kind of spark that passion. Then we have other courses we have to take specific to ethics, or to business practice, or to things with herbs and safety. All of those are super important. So continue doing that. And then, yeah, somebody posted the physician should strive to practice medicine that, is environmentally sustainable. I am currently residing in Texas. It is extremely hot. I know many of you guys in California, Arizona, Florida are really experiencing an extreme and dangerous heat wave. And yesterday we discussed a little bit about that I was just laying in bed one night thinking about it, how hot it is, how dangerous it is for people. And I used to work for an organization called the National Center for Farm Worker Health. And in that time when I was laying in bed the other night thinking about how insanely hot it was, I just really felt overwhelmed with concern for the farm workers. And so I just, posted on my social media to remind my friends, please, please, please think about where your food is coming from right now. People are working in a really dangerous situation. And just, send thoughts or healing energy their way if you see people that are in need of water and things like that. I often drive around with it in my car and hand it out to people, because right now we're in an environmental situation that's causing health risks, right? We're seeing we know as practitioners, oh my goodness, what does sustained heat do to you? It can really damage our kidneys from a Western and from an Eastern medicine practice. So there's so many things where this ties into. I agree. It's an important topic. Probably could be an entire webinar just about environmentally sustainable, because we all have a lot of different practices with our needles, right? And I always see people worrying about what we're doing with all of the waste that we create. So does anybody want to post anything in the chat? What does any of this mean to you? Again, I know it was a lot of information. I'll post some of the links. You can watch or not watch, read or not read. That's totally up to you. I just tried to think of things that we could talk about that might be a little bit different as well. And just to think about, the one thing I really thought that was cool about that international code was that it had a section about duties to society and talking about supporting fair and equitable provision of health care. That resonates with me. I hope it resonates with others. And maybe it doesn't, but we talked yesterday about social determinants of health, of inequities, and that's a big part of what resonates with me. Physicians play an important role in this environmental standard, right? An important role in matters relating to health education, to health literacy, right? All very important to me. So I hope that those are interesting and things that we're thinking about for us too. One part that it talked about with society was avoid acting in such a way to weaken the public trust in the medical profession. So again, that's really important to all of us. Yes, Tina's saying the waste from the guide tubes. Yes, there's so many things that we're all thinking about and working towards with sustainability. So I actually, Yes, and I love that we do spend time thinking and talking about these issues as well. I'm not I wish I was really like innovative and creative and smart where I could come up with some amazing way to have less waste. So I hope that there's one of you guys out there that is. And trust, yes, we need to be a good steward for our medicine, and encouraging patients to eat locally and within season. Yes, what a great thing, Tisa. Thank you for sharing. I love that as well. Local is great. We all probably love our local farmers and love our local farmers markets and things like that. So let me see what time it is. It's 11:05 my time, 9:05 you guys' time. So the next section gets into medical ethics and professional versus personal and things like that. So let's go ahead and take a break here, if that's okay with Donna, a few minutes early, and we'll take about a 15 or 20-minute break, whatever works for you, Donna, and let people think about some of this information, and then we'll come back and dig back in. And again, don't worry, you guys, I'm going to talk about some CML and try to get some, and pardon my my pronunciation. I try to practice, but still it sometimes doesn't come out right. But please just take some time to think about this and take a break for a little while. Donna, should we take 15 or 20 minutes? It's either one's fine with me.
Yeah, either way, up to you. You want to do
Okay,
20?
let's take 20 minutes, let people
Okay.
get a chance to
Right.
decompress from all that.
Yeah, let's go back at 9:30.
Okay, great.
Is it good? Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Recording stopped.